About 100 billion people have died in all human history. Every hour, at least one person is killed by a drunk driver in the United States. Every 40 seconds, someone commits suicide. As many as 80% of all deaths occur in hospitals. Death is a prominent thing in most people's life, wouldn't you say? We all have experienced death, whether it was of a family member, a friend, or maybe a complete stranger. The word death strikes fear in people's eyes and hearts. Most of the time, we are barely able to talk about or venture past the word itself. I myself have experienced death firsthand, no more than 10 feet from me. At first, my mind was overwhelmed with the fact that the man in front of me died on the hospital stretcher. But instead of completely shutting off, I was taken to another place, a place where I could understand death was not the end-all factor. I came to the realization that death was more than the negative word people associated with. It was something greater. I'm here today to look past my experiences and interview others on their experiences and beliefs about death, but also question them on their opinion on what happens after death and what death really means to them. Can you please state your name for me?
Sherry Nicholson Nave.
Okay, Miss Nave, I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions about a certain topic. All right. Number one, when the word death is mentioned, what is your first reaction, and what connotations do you think of confronted with the word death?
Since death is a separation from the physical part of life, death to me brings the thought of either entering the presence of God for eternity or being forever separated from God and thrown into hell.
Okay, what experiences have you came across where death was present in your life, and can you describe your feelings and emotions in those instances?
When I heard that my mother had died, my dad called me and told me, totally unexpected, that she had died. And I physically collapsed, called my husband, and he got me to her house. And she had only been dead for a few minutes, but she'd had Parkinson's disease, and she had been shrunken and stiff, and the sight of her face in so much peace was an actual blessing. So though I suffered the personal loss of her, I knew that she had been eternally healed and that I would see her again. So it was a physical separation, but it wasn't an eternal one.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you think happens after death, and what are your beliefs considering the end of someone's life?
I believe at the moment of death, we're either transported into the presence of Christ, our Savior, or we're thrown eternally away from Him with no chance of ever being reunited with Him. So when I think of someone's death, that's what I think of. It's final. It can't be undone. And where we spend eternity is based on the choices that we've made about Christ in our lives while we're here. I'm not sure I got the second part of your question answered. You had two questions in there.
Yes, the second part was,
What?
what are your beliefs considering?
Okay.
Do you believe that death is somewhat of a negative connotation to where when he enters someone's life, is something bad going to happen, or is it going to be something else?
When death comes, extremely bad. Like I said, to me it's finite. And it's because I was raised a believer and because I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. My eternity is secure at death. We spoke a line at my father's funeral that said, "From life to life everlasting," and for us, his heart will never stop, which means to me that though he suffered a physical death, his spirit and soul will live forever with Christ in heaven.
Okay. Do you consider death a positive or negative means when it comes down to the end of someone's life?
Again, it depends on their relationship with Christ. At the end of their lives, if they haven't made a personal decision, a personal acceptance of Him, I believe that for them, that eternal loss is just too gruesome to even consider. I can't imagine the thought of the endless eternal torture. Oh, this sounds dreadful. So for me, it's not a happy thought. It wouldn't be a happy thought for anybody to die without Christ. But I do believe that not everybody shares my opinion.
So would you consider death to have more of a religious aspect to it?
Absolutely.
And then my last question is, when you're confronted face to face with death, how do you come at it personally?
I have a feeling that I'm going to, like I said, step immediately into the presence of Christ. Or as we imagined that He came for my mother and dad, that Christ stepped down and took them into His arms rather than them rising, that He came and gathered them up and took them to heaven with Him. So I imagine at my death, I will be immediately in His presence. And like I said, for my breath to stop here just means that it will continue eternally with Him.
Okay, thank you, Miss Nave. That's all I have. All right, can you please state your name for me?
Chris Loposser.
All right, Mr. Loposser, I'm just going to ask you a couple questions. All right, number one, when the word death is mentioned, what is your first reaction? And what connotations do you think of confronted with the word death?
My first thought is what caused it. Being a policeman for 23 years, usually when the word death is mentioned, the next thing you have to figure out is what was the causation? Was there anything, an illegal act that took place with it? Was it, if not illegal, justifiable action, or was it natural?
Okay. What experiences have you came across where death was present in your life, and can you describe your feelings or emotions in those instances?
Seen death a lot during my career. I've also experienced death on the personal side with family members and loved ones. They're two separate and distinct feelings. When it happens at my job, it's more of a clinical feeling where you're looking into the causation and developing who, what, when, where, how, and if possible, why these things occurred. There's a process involved. It's very clear. It's very linear. When it is involving a family member or somebody that you care about, there's an emotional context to it. And the main process there is concern for your loved one that passed. Were they in pain? Did they suffer? And then there's the associated grief that goes with that, and you have to compile your thoughts and feelings and deal with the grief and find a way to progress through it.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you think happens after death, and what are your beliefs considering the end of someone's life?
As a human being, when it involves humans, if I believe after somebody passes away, if they've been saved, then they go to heaven. If they were not saved, then possibly they go to hell. When it comes to other forms, animals, so forth, so on, I don't think there's the same connotation, because animal souls are innocent to begin with. They just do what they do because they're animals. The human context is where the soul is encumbered by choices that we make based on our capabilities as humans. So I think religion plays a big part in that.
Okay. What does death mean to you personally? What does the word mean to you?
Again, in context to the profession, it is simply a statute in the statute book and a crime that needs to be solved. When it comes to personal, I look at death as a new beginning, not necessarily the end for human beings.
Do you consider death a positive or negative means when it comes to the end of someone's life?
I don't know how you can have death and the end of somebody's life and it not be the same thing. Death it just simply is what it is. It is neither happy nor sad. It is neither good nor evil. At some point in time, everybody's life comes to an end.
All right, thank you.
All right.